Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Good morning.
Looking snazzy as usual.
Second time in a suit in 10 months.
Doesn't it feel nice to dress as a human?
I happen to have 3 listing appointments today, so
Oh, good. So now we can
I
tell
wish I
everyone.
could do it for you, Chirag.
I appreciate it. Well, good morning to everyone. Let's get started. So this is our first session of an agent spotlight. And what we wanted to do was, in Compass fashion of learning from reality, is to take some of the best agents within our community, within Compass, and share with you what they're doing. Ethan has volunteered to share a bit about his life journey, which I find very interesting and inspiring, and also get into some more tactical and, as we like to say, transferable skills that you could take into your business today. So, Ethan, you have, if you guys saw in our newsletter, Ethan Spotlight interview, Ethan is probably one of, like, everyone has a story before they come to real estate, but I didn't even realize, like, Ethan went from being a cantor to an agent in Long Island to deciding that, oh, I should just go to New York City and start my business all over again, to earning a spot on the Real Trends top 100 teams last year, and is continuing to thrive. So I want, in terms of our theme of fresh starts, I want Ethan just to quickly introduce himself, tell a little bit about his team, his market, and I'm just going to jump into our Q&A and help you guys learn from reality.
I'll let you share.
Oh, well, good morning, everybody. Thanks, Chirag, for inviting me to participate. My name is Ethan Leifer. I am an agent with Compass. Been with Compass for 3.5 years now or so. And I'm based out of New York City, in Manhattan. We do do some business in Brooklyn and Long Island as well. And like Chirag said, I started my business and career on Long Island, built a pretty successful team out there on the North Shore in the Great Neck, Manhasset area. For a variety of reasons, that market changed with the influx of a lot of little mom and pop sort of businesses that started undercutting commissions and all that good stuff, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with in your market. So I said, hey, let's give it a shot in the city, and came out to the city full time about 4.5 years ago or so, 5 years, and been building my team since then, and spent 1.5 years at Corcoran and the last 3.5 years or so at Compass, and things have been going great. Currently have a team of 9, and hopefully that will continue to grow, and I'm happy to answer all of Chirag's questions and any questions that you guys may have.
So I'm going to go quick in rapid fire, and we'll take the notes. And this way I want to get to time for Q&A. And after this, Ethan's going to host a live role-playing session. So for those of you that want to stay on, please stay on. I highly recommend it. So let's talk about fresh starts, right? You get into a new market, you're in a new business, right? Number one, for most of us, we've had a different career prior to doing real estate, right? How were you able to really take the skills you had in your prior career and apply them to real estate? And how could people think they're doing the same?
Well, being a cantor, and those of you who don't know what a cantor is, it's basically a member of the clergy. If you think of a synagogue, and I'm sure most of you know what a rabbi might be. So rabbi does a lot of talking during a service, and the cantor does all the singing. So I had a professional singing career, still have it, but and I did have a position as a clergy member in the synagogue as a cantor. And many of the skills are very similar. It's all relationship building. It's being there for people when they need you most. It's sharing happy occasions, sad occasions, all of those things that we as real estate agents do on a daily basis, and really share parts of our clients' lives that a lot of people don't get to share. And we deal with a lot of people's biggest investments and a lot of their finances and futures and security and all of that. So the ability to develop relationships in the Cantor world certainly helped me in knowing what to do and to handle people and all the ups and downs of life in transferring into my real estate career.
Got it. So I want everyone to think, if they had a previous career, right? Like, what's one skill that you already know that you had that worked really well that you can apply to what you're currently doing? I always find, Ethan, it's interesting. When we look in the mirror, what we see is not the same thing that someone else sees. And this is a good opportunity to kind of hold that mirror back up to your past and reflect it into your future. So my next question is fresh starts, right? It's our theme. It's a new year. Starting in a new market is incredibly difficult, right? Whether it's you're farming a new area, you just moved, you're at a new company, whatever it is, what did you find that really worked for you, right? Because going from a suburban market in Long Island that has an MLS to a New York City market that has nothing, right? Like, you've seen both worlds, you see how different it is. What skills can people really dial into that you used in having a new start somewhere and becoming successful?
Well, for me, and I know this doesn't necessarily translate for everybody, but for me, it was cold calling. For me, I had the confidence to know that if I got in front of people, I would be able to convince them to give me a chance to work with me. But obviously, I needed the opportunities. So I became a cold calling machine, basically. And I got data, and I found vendors and somehow dug into expired listings without an MLS and found information and phone numbers. And I literally was on the phone. I had it blocked in my calendar, 9 to 12 every day, 3 hours a day. I probably made 3,000 to 4,000 calls a week, circle prospecting and expired listings and FSBOs. And it enabled me to build my business. And eventually, you get to a point where you don't have the time to make those calls yourself. You start hiring out ISAs, OSAs, training people, and to book those appointments for you and grow the team that way. But I just put my head down and started calling and was very disciplined about it and got myself some opportunities, and the business has taken off from there. So that was for me. I know not everybody is comfortable cold calling for one reason or another, but the hardest part is really just starting and picking up the phone, making that first call. Once you make that first call, it's kind of downhill from there. It's easy. But it's the trick is making that first call, and that's the hardest part for people. But that's what it was for me. I put in the time, and it certainly paid off.
So it's interesting, right? Is what I want you guys also to take away from this is everything you're doing, as you can know, I know Ethan's journey intimately, right? Is helped him today, right? A lot of times we don't see the skills that we're developing today necessarily as something that'll even help us in our future, right? So in terms of doing this, right, what are the skills you learned in calling every day, right? Objection handling. What are some of the other ones you learned?
I mean, objection handling. I learned a lot of things. I learned how to mirror the people I was speaking with. I learned how to, and I'll talk about this more on the live role play, but I learned that how I said something was more important than what I was actually saying. And there are a lot of lessons I've taken. I've made tens of thousands of phone calls to people who had no interest in talking to me. And there are so many skills that I use now, and all of those calls and all those objections, there's probably not an objection I haven't heard. It's all of those skills have enabled me now, not only for myself, but obviously to train my team, to teach them the skills needed for them to grow in their own business, which obviously ultimately helps the team as well. But yeah, I mean, the biggest lesson I think for me, and I learned, and we're going to talk about this again, like I said in the role play, it's really not what you say. It is a little bit, but not really, but more of how you say it. And we'll talk about that a lot. And that's the biggest lesson and biggest takeaway that I took from all of the calls I made.
So I want you guys to take in listening to from like a coach's ear, right? I would say is number one, when Ethan went to the market, number one, he had clarity on where he needed to go, right? His goal was I need to just get in front of people. But then when he had clarity, he had a process, right? But then he committed to that process regardless of what happened every day, right? Because there are some days that are good, some days that are bad, and other days that are all just the same, right? So what did you do? As look, whether Ethan, we're calling our past clients, centers of influence, clients we orphaned, meaning that we haven't talked to them in a while, there can be some discomfort. Someone could say something that might not be in alignment with what our view of the conversation is. And what I find is a lot of agents shut down, right? Like something happens and it's one event, right? And we talk about the 90-10 rule. 90% it happens the same way. It's a great conversation. 10% it doesn't go your way. And people operate off the 10%. So what advice can you give people about, like, for you, right? Because you had a wife, you have kids, right? Like there's a lot of pressure on you to make this work. What do you do to bounce back each day? And how can people deal with the rejection and the idea of things not going that they want?
Well, for me, it was a shift in mindset. And I started looking at all of the no's that I got as a monetary event. So let's say it took me 100 calls till I got a yes, and that yes resulted in a $10,000 commission, let's just say, right? So to me, the 99 people who said no to me before, but I made that call until I got to 100, were worth X amount of dollars till I hit that $10,000 one. So to me, every time I made a phone call, even if they said no, I was making money because that no was worth. Yeah, so I said thank you very much, thank you very much, thank you very much. It was worth something, obviously less, but it's all a monetary event until you reach that one person who says yes to you, that now you're going to get the big payoff. You don't reach that person unless you call the 99 people before them. So it's all about consistency. It's all about just doing it, being accountable to yourself, being accountable to your calendar, being accountable to your time blocking. And you just need to do it and do it consistently. And I assure you, I promise you that there are more bad days than there are good ones when it comes to cold calling. You are getting 98% no, 98%. So at least, probably more than that. The amount of, depending on how many calls you make. But if your mindset is that they're not saying no to you, they are literally just paying you a little bit of money for your time for every no they said. So it's a no. Here's a little check for $100, and you're going to keep making those $100 until you reach that person who's going to say yes. And now you're going to make $30,000 or $40,000 or $100,000, whatever it may be. All those no's before it were worth money to you. And for me, that's the mindset I needed and continue to have as far as being able to handle being told no as often as I am.
So guys, couple things, right? When we hear no, put in the chat box, what do you normally think, right? When you get shut down by somebody, what is your logical and emotional reaction? You put either one. Stick it in there. I want to hear what a couple people think. What happens when people tell you no? They don't like you. Ryan, thank you for being honest. Disappointment, feeling unwanted. Move on. Disappointment in myself and the other person. I got upset. Wondered what I could have. So ready? I'll share with you guys something really interesting. Start to overthink, feeling like I failed. Great. I know that we're going to do an entire session. David, you can make a note. This one's for you. How do you deal with rejection, right? Because what's really interesting is immediately when someone rejects our product or service, based on all the answers, Ethan, like you, in your specific case, assigned a monetary value, something positive to every no. So in your mind, it's like, oh, great. They said, no, I just got $100. You literally could keep writing this down. But for a lot of us, we feel that people rejected us, not even the product or service, right? They rejected the service, right? So for all of us that wrote that thing down, and Rachel, we should capture all these things in the chat. I want you guys to write something opposite, right? So Ethan, and you're saying, so they can kind of fill this in for themselves, and I'll have them kind of pop in the chat what the next thing is. So for you said, for every no, let's just use your example, right? It took 100 calls to get a commission. So every no was worth $100, correct?
Sure.
Right? So every person that says no is worth $100, right? So every time you heard that, and I don't know Maria personally, but I like your answer, move on. The answer is it's worth $100, right? So how can you guys flip your statements into something that can be more positive, right? Because I find this moment right here a fundamental shift in your real estate career, your 2021, and quite frankly, how you think through your business and your life, right? Every single time we tend to hold the mirror up to ourselves. So Ethan, when you held the mirror up to yourself and those kooky thoughts started kicking into your head, what did you do?
Well, certainly in the beginning, I had all the feelings that everybody is putting in here. Definitely was questioning what I was saying, and all of that. That's part of where I started to shift on how I said things, and I didn't really change what I said, and the results started changing. So it became again how I was relaying my message. And like I said, for me, it was just the flip of the switch in the mind, which is easier said than done, and it takes time. That I was getting value out of every no, and every no I got, every conversation I had was leading me to get better and better and better. And a lot of times, just I see a lot. Well, I could have been said something I said wrong. Is like a lot of times they're just not ready. And an important lesson that you have to understand is that it takes sometimes several calls to close someone. It's to me, and this is, I guess, a little one-line takeaway. It was never a no for me. It was just a not yet. I should be like, okay, they're saying no, they're just not ready yet, or they don't know they're ready yet, or they don't need my services yet. So those little shifts, like they're not really rejecting me. I think they're just not ready. So I put it more on them. And I also then assign that monetary value.
Perfect. So look, we have a lot of great stuff in the chat, and I want to make sure to get to it. I can thank, let's see, whoever's thing says Liz Cohn. They have a clock in the background, so that's great. So look, we want to get to questions, but I want to tie this all into one thing to kind of close this up and get to everyone's questions before we get to the role play. It is, look, like now that you've done this, right? What I find as a team leader, you've done one of the best jobs that I've seen is training your agents on being productive, right? On helping them understand. People that have little to no skills in this, I've watched you turn the people that follow and plug into your system into people that can convert leads, handle objections, close sales, and make money. Can we walk the group through what that process is like, right? Like, what do they do? How often do they do it? And then we could get to the questions in the chat box.
So, I mean, for us, I made the decision back in March when we shut down in the city. We could either take this time to let everybody just be and have basically a little vacation, or we can use the time productively and get everybody up and running so they can be as productive as possible once we reopen. And I give all the credit to my team. They bought in hook, line, and sinker, both feet in the pool. And we had role playing every day while we were shut down. And they join. And we did a lot of, obviously, a lot of buyer conversion conversations, a lot of lead conversion conversations, things like that, handling those objections. And we just practiced every single day. Even Greg, who's here on this year's, who's on my team, but has nothing to do with residential real estate. He runs our commercial sales, doesn't have anything to do with conversations that we have. Even Greg joined every day to be a part of the team and helped our agents with some tough calls. Everybody hated having to call against Greg because he acted like your typical hard-nosed New Yorker who think they knew everything, but it was great training for the agents. And it was just work. They just put in the work and the time, and they are reaping the rewards. And success breeds confidence, and it just made them want to do more of it. And even though we're open now, we still have multiple role-playing sessions a week, and they still join with enthusiasm, have not complained, have not asked me to stop. They love it. They're working, and they develop the skills. And you have to practice, and it's very expensive to practice on your clients. Very expensive. Practice with other people. There's a whole 50 people in this chat here today, and there's a couple of hundred in Chirag's community that would love to practice and role play, and we're going to start doing that on a weekly basis here. But you need to practice, and don't practice on your clients. It's very expensive. Practice with other people, and then take the field and pick up the phone and do what you need to do.
Look, whether you're calling, right, Ethan, your past clients, a Zillow lead, a Street Easy lead, any form of a human being, it's a conversation, it's a contact.
100%.
So here's some takeaways I want you guys to all have. If you have not emailed Rachel to get into accountability groups and role play groups, please do. We have, I think, 40, 50 people in groups of 4 that have raised their hand that said, I want to do this. We'll help facilitate it, organize it. We'll give you the topics and everything else and how to do it. We'll put 90% of the work together for you. All you guys need to do is show up and practice. And what I want you guys to realize is Ethan's team, what you see as the 9 people, was not always this team of 9 people. Ethan, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't we pretty much rehire your whole team from when we started together in March till now?
Yes, we did. I did not have my previous group of agents. I do not believe had the desire, the capacity to do what my current group of agents has done. Chirag helped me see that. And we made wholesale changes to the team, and it's been night and day.
So the consistency of this new group of people that all met on Zoom screens, right? This is a very replicatable model. Everyone should be practicing their skill set, their conversations, and role playing. And I get it from agents like, well, why do I need to do this? I was like, well, you should talk to me for 5 minutes, and I'm going to put you in a corner, and you might not understand what you're saying, or you're just going to talk too much, right? Like, listening is a learned skill. Asking questions is a learned skill. When to start, when to stop is a learned skill. And no matter how good you are in this business, you can always get better, right? It's like you look at every professional athlete. Michael Jordan was the greatest athlete on the planet. He still practiced. He still had a coach. He still trained every day. Tim Grover has made a great living off of him, Kobe Bryant, and Dwayne Wade, right? Like, talking about what he's done for them. So you have an opportunity today to just simply send an email to Rachel. Continue to sit in on these calls. Continue to reach out to people, right? Like, the best part about Compass is the people. It's the culture. It's all of you guys, right? We're all in the same place, same company, same tools, and we can all network with each other. We can all share referrals. We can all get to know each other. Most importantly, we can build genuine friendships. We all go through the same journey every single day. And real estate can be a very lonely business, Someone said unto me on a coaching call, like, what happens if I have a deal and I'm kind of just stuck? I'm like, reach out to someone in the group. We have people in here at a variety of level of success, but the culture that we have in our community is a culture of giving and caring. So every person cares about the next person, whether you realize it or not. So I encourage you to get to know more people in the group. I encourage you to stay in on the role playing, and I encourage you guys to reach out and join your accountability groups. If you haven't responded to an email, please do, and take the time to follow Ethan's blueprint. Right, he's been kind enough to share his process with us. We have a similar process, which is pretty much the same thing of role playing. We have our sessions here and everything else. And look, we're a couple days in the new year, and we're just rocking and rolling. Right, so start asking yourself different questions. Right, what would be the financial benefits, your business, the life, the experience other people would have with you if you were able to show up differently? I know Melissa has, and I'll unmute you for a second, Melissa. Can you just share with the group in the way that you've changed your conversations, what that's been like for other people, like your clients?
Certainly. So when oftentimes as realtors, we're defending the cost, we're defending the property, as opposed to really understanding what the client wants, and whether that client wants something below market value, they want what they want. And so rather than defending and not being present for the client, I've really shifted with Chirag's help. And if the client wants it, I'm able to just say, I understand the market value, but this is what the client wants. And it shifted my relationship with my clients, and it shifted the way I think. And I'm no longer agitated. I'm just sort of there in the moment, present, and it's going to be what it's going to be with confidence.
Thank you. So if you notice this about both of them, right? Ethan is very even keeled, right? Like he's like as we joke around and say salt on the earth. It's just he's the giver's giver, and you've noticed this in just this conversation. The more you work with him, and he's a coach here as well too, is that it's that ability just to stay calm. So can you just give a couple tips on just regardless on just how to stay even keeled throughout like what is a very emotional, dramatic business that make you feel like you're in a pinball machine?
Yeah. So I think if my team hears this one more time, they may, jump off a building somewhere because I say it constantly every day, reminding them. I'll send them email with nothing in it occasionally, just in the subject line, just with this one line. And I tell them all the time, focus on the work. And don't focus on the money. Don't focus on commissions. Don't focus on anything else except the work. I tell them they have one job. We all have one job as real estate salespeople, and it's not to sell real estate. We have one job, and that's to lead generate. One job is to create opportunities. That's it. The selling is a result of our lead generation and our creating those opportunities. And if we just focus on the work and not worry about, I know this is a commission-based job and we have families to feed. It's hard to say, well, we don't worry about it at all. But if your main focus in the work, the money will take care of itself. Guaranteed. And when you're focusing on the work, it's much easier to not get too excited when things are going well and not to get too down when things aren't going as well. Just put your head down and focus on the work.
That's great advice. On that note, I have to jump. Rachel is going to take over. We're going to quickly she'll go through everyone's questions, and then we'll hop right into role playing. Ethan, thank you for sharing your journey, your process, and things that other people can do, right? Raise your hand if you have something different that you're going to go to today based on what Ethan said. Some of you are going to do something different. How many people are going to do something that they know they should have been doing based on a conversation they heard or had today? Maria's flagging her hands, right? So we have a few hands going up, right? So what we want to do is remember, focus on the work, focus on the process. Remember, skill set, habits, and routines are the three things that will get you to every goal that you want in both your personal life and your business life. So thank you guys for being here, and I will kick it over to Rachel. Rachel?
Thanks. I just want to wrap up a few of these questions before we jump into role playing. So Michael asked, Ethan, what would you suggest we do regarding cold calling during the pandemic? How has that changed for you?
Yeah, that was tough for sure. We were able to call FSBOs since they're technically properties on the market. So we focused a lot on FSBOs. We did a lot more. We got some email lists from the data company I use for where I got my expired listings. So we were able to get emails along with the phone numbers from those people. So we basically put a lot of what we said in a phone call into an email form and sent out a lot of emails into specific expired listings as a shift. And obviously, once they call you, if they call you back, then you can have these conversations. That's kind of where we focused. And, I also have an ISA who's not in New York necessarily. So I don't know how banned they are from calling people. So I don't know.
Cool.
But focus on some emails, some letters, and you can certainly call FSBOs since they're on their properties on the market. So I would start there.
So it sounds like if you made yourself a really good script for cold calling on the phone, you can translate that into email and give people a little space during the pandemic.
Yeah, and we don't write necessarily in scripts paragraph form. It's very bullet pointed. Obviously acknowledging that they had a property on the market. It did not sell. Here's a couple of things where you may want to consider having a conversation with us. Would you like to set up an appointment just to have a phone call? And we were able to get some response that way. And then once they agreed to the phone call, it wasn't a cold call anymore. So we were able to have those calls.
Nice. Liz asked, did your cold calling success change when you stopped talking to them and asking the questions you have the answers for?
Well, I definitely learned to listen more. I definitely in the beginning, I talked a lot. That was part of the education process. I definitely started asking a lot more questions, but the biggest shift came from as my confidence grew and really how I said things really changed, which ultimately led to the different response on the other end. So definitely I listened more, but the biggest shift for me happened when I changed how I was saying things versus what I was actually saying.
Gotcha. I think that makes a lot of sense and goes back to what you were saying before. Jody wanted to know, did you follow up with the same people or did you just keep calling new people?
Both. I did not just call through a list one time. We would go back and, follow up with everybody for sure. And so it was definitely a mixture of new calls and follow-up calls on a daily basis.
Great. Last question. Luciana wanted to know, what is the best time to do these calls in your experience, morning or the end of the day? Very practical.
My experience, the morning is better. Never perfect. You're either running to people getting ready for work or getting their kids off to school or something like that in the morning, or you're running into dinner time and homework time in the afternoon. But I like to do it in the morning before I got busy with appointments and showings, because if I didn't do it first thing, then it didn't happen. So for the sake of doing it, I would suggest doing it first thing in the morning.
It's like going to the gym. If you
don't going to the gym,
it's not going to happen.
Typically,
oh, right.
For me, for sure, not happening.
Last question. The questions just keep on coming. You're very popular. Where did you get the phone numbers, Marina?
Well, there are several vendors you can use depending on your market. A lot of the big ones don't necessarily work in New York because we don't have an MLS. But if you're not in New York and you want to start calling expireds or FSBOs, you can look into things like Vulcan or RedX. Those are a couple that provide Vulcan 7, Red X, those are a couple of companies that provide data on expired listings and for sale by owners.
Okay, and now I really think this is the last question. Andrea wanted to know, did you leave a message if they don't answer, or did you just hang up?
Yeah, so I use a power dialer called Mojo, and it was a triple line dialer. So I call 3 people at a time. I would never have been able to finger dial 4,000 people a week. So you can pre-record a voicemail message, which I did. And then once the machine picks up, you can just hit drop message, and the system does it for you. So if no one answered, everybody got a voicemail for sure, and I got a lot of callbacks from it. So definitely worth it. But I didn't have to physically leave a message for everybody. The system did it for it.
Can you repeat the name of that program for everyone?
The dialer, Mojo.
Yeah. Mojo. Okay, and this
Mojo.
will also be. We'll send this information out later. It'll be online. I want to shift